So with Chicken Run, when we first came to pitch the idea to DreamWorks, as it was, we had a Hollywood pitch. Now, a Hollywood pitch is the short version of the story, which is so compelling that the listener says, I want to make that movie, and shakes your hand. Okay, so that's what we did. We were in a restaurant in Hollywood, and we said, we're going to make The Great Escape with chickens.
Operation Cover Up! No chicken escapes from Tweedy's farm!
We've got to get out of here.
My name is Peter Lord. I am creative director at Aardman in Bristol. And I started out as an animator, working on TV series like Morph. And then perhaps my big credits would be as co-director of Chicken Run in the year 2000, and then director of The Pirates in an Adventure with Scientists, which I was 2012, I think. So director, animator director, but also now producer, and I've produced, exec produced, lots of, all the movies, the Aardman movies I've been intimately involved in. So that's Flushed Away, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, Arthur Christmas, Shaun the Sheep, all those things as exec producer. I was at school, high school, when I met my partner, Dave Sproxton. We started animating together at the age of 17, I think. Then we separated, and I went off to study English literature. I thought about animation, but there were no good schools in England at that time. So I chose literature, which suggests that I wasn't really thinking about a career in animation at that time. My mind was open as to what my career would be. So I studied literature, but at the same time I was also making short films for the BBC. So I was getting practical experience of storytelling and animation. And so there was a period of I would say 4 years when I was at university doing literature, but in the vacations I met up with David and we did animation. So that was our training on the job, as they say in England. Yeah. And in '76 we graduated, and we felt confident enough to say we'll form a company now. I'm a great believer and advocate for old school animation. Of course I am, because that's what we do. We started out, we must have discovered model animation, and specifically plasticine animation or clay animation, call it what you like, but we must have discovered that in about 1971 or 2, so a long time ago. Now we keep doing it, but the world around us has changed beyond recognition. When we started, our technique was the only technique to put certain impossible events on screen believably in 3D. So if you wanted a three-dimensional dinosaur, or if you wanted a man made of butter to ride a motorbike, the only way to do it was stop motion animation. So when we started, what we were doing was cutting edge. It was new. But now computer animation has completely changed that upside down, so that now cutting edge is CGI, and clay animation, puppet animation, stop motion animation, I know, are old technology. But I believe that there's a place for old technology. I believe there's an appetite for it. There's a place, you know. I mean, it's like, it's easy to use metaphors, but like in the world of electronic music, there's still place for someone to play Baroque music on a 17th century violin, you know, and there's still a place to play on an acoustic guitar. So, and in the world of manufacturing, if you want to make a simple object like a plate, you can make it by hand or you can make it by machine, and it is true that the machine can make it so well that it's very hard to tell the difference. I know that, but if you believe, as I do, if I simply believe in the human touch, the handmade element, that is important, that has value, which I do believe. So that's why we keep on doing it. If the audience really don't care, which may happen, it could happen, then maybe we'll stop. Maybe we'll stop. But as long as the audience, a big enough audience, cares, then we'll do it. You know, Shaun the Sheep is very, very popular in Germany. Shaun the Sheep, it's very obvious that he's made out of real material. That, you know, resin, wool, furry wool, plasticine. That he lives in a world made of wood and stone and metal and glass, a tangible world, an artificial world, a handmade world. I think that is very obvious all the time while you're watching it, and I think that's, for me, that's where the magic is. People assume that stop motion animation is more expensive. That's most people's assumption. Strangely enough, it depends on the scale. If we make a feature film, okay, so we made a feature film of Shaun the Sheep. Refer to that sheep again. We made a feature film of Shaun the Sheep. It cost, I'm going to say this, but I'll probably get it wrong, about 15 million euros, I think, 15, I think it was about that. I don't know. I'm the producer, and I don't really know. But anyway, something like that. Something like that. For a feature film, that's very cheap. That's very cheap. I mean, but I know that in Europe, some people are making films for 3 million euros. In the States, they're making films for $150 million. So, Shaun is relatively cheap, I think. I know that for TV series, it's relatively expensive because there's so much human effort goes into it. It's still, well, all I can tell you is it still works for us economically, so we keep doing it. I will say it's more difficult now to find the funding, but an audience enjoys it, you know, an audience feels they've had a special experience. So we will just keep finding ways to do it. Certainly, a CG TV series is cheaper. You make all the assets, especially, you know, simple, you know, Flash or something like that. Yes, that's cheaper, but ours is better. In all animation, music is incredibly important, amazingly important. Anecdotally, I've had a sort of a bad experience where I made a short film called Adam. I shot the film, I talked to the composer, he went away, he composed a score. When he came back, my film was completely transformed, but not in the way I wanted. He had taken, the film was ambiguous between optimism and pessimism, and he had taken the pessimistic view of the film and he played it for tragedy all the way through, and so he took all the fun out of the film. He changed it afterwards. I said, "Oh no, that's no good." He changed it and made it, you know, funnier. That is only just a practical example of how incredibly influential it is. I have to tell you, as a filmmaker, it's kind of annoying, actually, because like on a feature film, 200 people work for 15, 18 months to create this effect. And then one guy comes along at the end and composes, and that one guy seems to have almost as much impact as the 200 guys before. So it's hugely important. Choosing composers, therefore, is a very subtle business, you know, and all you can do is listen to their work. That's all you can do. So we sit around. When we watch films, we're very attentive to the music, looking for a spirit that we like. Especially in a movie, it's so complicated because there's music which is almost undetectable, that just gently conveys atmosphere, and but really affects how you feel. I mean, tension is an obvious one. You know, without the music being very strong, you can really generate tension. Without the music being very strong, you can generate a light feeling, an optimistic feeling. And then there's the stuff which is highly selective, you know, not to a single moment perhaps, but sometimes the music is very dominant, and you're, as a viewer, you're very aware of the music, and everything in between. If there's so many, you know, so a composer can compose a melody and play it to you on the piano, and you think, oh, that's a lovely melody. But then what he can do with that melody, in terms of orchestration, you know, key changes, pace, energy, performance from the orchestra, has an incredible effect. I'm saying all this. I'm the worst person to ask because I don't. I'm not. Music is not my strength. Music is not my strength. You know. But I love it. I love it when it works. I love it. It's very hard for me because I'm not a musician. It's quite hard to talk to a musician, to a composer. You know, you find the language. You know, and often, for convenience, if I don't have any other language, then I'll say, oh, you know, like the Star Wars theme, you know, or something really, really obvious like that. You know, but that's kind of what you have to do. Personally, because I'm not very confident about music, I like to hear it earlier. So the last film that I was completely on was The Pirates, and then the composer started composing themes probably 6 months before the end, but he liked to compose to a finished sequence. So the film has got 25 sequences, or whatever. But when you finish 3 sequences, then he could start to compose and put music down, and then you could start hear it, and you could make suggestions and changes, and he could have time to change. And then as the film goes on, the music he composed for this sequence number 2, you think, oh, that's a great theme. Let's go back to that in sequence number 14. So you build it slowly. I talked to the composer Danny Elfman, who I really liked. I liked him. I love his music. You know, huge talent. He said, just give me the finished film, and I'll compose the music for you. And I was just too scared. I thought, whoa, that's so terrifying. I bet he'd have done a great job. So amongst the things which transforms the film at the end is the sound mix. Now, again, in the same way that I'm not confident about music, I'm not particularly confident about the sound mix, but I love it, and it's rather similar, because with the composer and the orchestra, two things that I can't, you know, I couldn't direct an orchestra, but he can, and they achieve something amazing. So with the sound mixer and the effects and the Foleys that have been done, it's hugely influential, and it's exciting. It's a lovely process, very interactive. You know, you sit there in the perfect room with the perfect audio all around you, and you're just changing all the levels, and most importantly the atmospheres. I mean, when I say atmospheres, the sense of place, the sense that you are really there in that wide open empty space, or in that wooden space, or a small metal space. So it's very interesting to create those things. The people that record the effects and actually make them, or as they've get them off a pre-existing, it's a huge job. I mean, it's amazing, because I don't know about it, or I didn't know about it when I started on Chicken Run. And you sit in the room, and there are so many layers to sound. It's not just a background, wind whistling and then a gate closing. There's just layer upon layer of sounds that go to make an effect. And sometimes that's just, as I say, it's about place, and it's also about storytelling. Directing the audience, the viewer's attention to some element of the scene, which is important. And sometimes you can just have fun with it and create some sound that no one's ever heard before. For example, in Chicken Run, we built this. The chickens built, not me. A big wooden aeroplane with flapping canvas wings, pedalled by chickens. So that's 100 chickens with 100 sets of pedals, with ropes going round, gigantic cogwheels turning, and gigantic wooden wings flapping, and fabric flapping. So making that sound was a huge challenge, for the guys that were doing it, and a fun challenge. I think, so you made a sound that of course no one could ever possibly hear, and you make it believable, exciting, and funny. Sometimes funny is good, because you can suggest, like, that machine could sound. It could sound as if the chickens that made it were really experts, or it could sound as if it was just barely holding together, and so we went for the second version. When we said we'll do The Great Escape with chickens, that was actually only a pitch. It was shorthand, because actually the film is nothing like The Great Escape at all, really. But it has references to The Great Escape. So in fact, in The Great Escape, you come into the camp, and I think you spend, I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes, sort of tunneling and, tricking the guards and making disguises and all this kind of thing, and then 15 minutes escaping, and then another 20 minutes being chased after and recaptured and shot. So that's not very good for the chickens. But what do you remember? You remember Steve McQueen on the motorbike, Steve McQueen in the cell playing baseball, throwing a baseball against the wall. The men are forging identity papers, but when the guards come in, the desk turns upside down and they're drawing butterflies or something. The guys that carry earth inside their trousers, and then they shake it. So these are the things you remember. We referred to those things for fun, because it would give the audience pleasure, and if you'd never seen The Great Escape, well, it's still fun anyway. That's the thing. I never want to refer to something else for that to be structural. Like, it's important. It's very important to me that if no one's seen the original, they'll just enjoy your film. So it can't be. Your references shouldn't be structural, but. That Nick Park, my colleague, is very good at it. He likes doing it too. He likes these references. I mean, I do too, but he's very, very keen on them, and he seeks them out. He looks for them, and it's fun. It gives if the audience get it, then they think they've been clever, and everyone thinks you've been clever, and you laugh. And if the audience don't get it, it doesn't matter. When we made Chicken Run, the whole film was shot on film. Actually, it's quite sad in a way. It was all shot on film, and now everything we shoot is digital. I say sad because we bought, I think, 40 35mm movie cameras, Mitchells, 35 or 40 of these things. Very expensive to buy, because then they were working tools that everyone needed, very well made. That they would be running, they would work for 100 years if you looked after them. Very good engineering, really well made. But the world has moved on. The world has moved on, and now there are virtually no labs. There's no laboratory to send your film to, you know, and nobody wants to show film anymore. So we've gone digital. And I said sad also because some of the guys in the company, especially the slightly older ones, my age, were very sentimentally attached to film. Not me so much, because I've never been a technical person at all. No, I'm not. So I never loved cameras the same way those guys loved cameras. But there were 6 or 7 people who loved cameras, and they loved these machines. These precious machines that made it possible to make a film. Now it's just like a little 35mm still camera. But having said that, it's much better. It's much easier. You know, it's so much easier to make a film now. Yeah, wow. And the digital technology, I love it. I absolutely love it, because it gives you such freedom. In the old days, with Chicken Run, at the end of the day's filming, the film that was in the camera had to be transferred into a film can and sealed up in a special magical way that they used to do, and then it was sent by motorbike or by van to London, because there were no laboratories in Bristol. It was developed overnight. The first print came out at 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning, put on another bike, brought back to Bristol, and by 9:30 in the morning or 10:30, if the traffic was bad, you could see what you'd done the previous day. And then you were looking out for anything that was wrong. You spent all your energy was not on the performance, but it was is there anything wrong in the picture? As you know, sometimes a hair in the gate was the terrible thing, you know, a little flickering image in the gate. Sometimes a light had changed or something like that. And only then could you say, okay, that shot worked, tick, now let's move on. Whereas today, as soon as a shot is finished digitally, you look at it digitally, that works, yep, okay, move on. So that's good. And then if something has gone wrong, if something that shouldn't happen has happened, you can fix it. You can fix it digitally so easily, you know. So I love that. So as a director, that's very liberating. That's one whole area that you don't have to worry about. You know, like so now when I look at the completed shots, all I look at is that the performance I want? Good. Okay. And everything else, if there's a problem, somebody will fix it. I'm particularly fond and proud of a film called The Pirates.
When tales are told of pirates, their vicious nature and their ruthless ways, one pirate is more feared than them all.
Avast! I'm the pirate captain, and I'm here for your gold.
Afraid we don't have any gold, old man. This is a leper boat. See?
In Britain, it was called The Pirates in an Adventure with Scientists. I don't know what they called it in Germany. And I just feel very attached to it. I feel it's, for good or ill, it's purely me. You know, like it's the sort of thing I wanted to do. You know, very British, I think. Very funny. Kind of quite a strong vein of like absurdity in it. You know, almost surrealism, like, you know, which is, people often refer to Monty Python. Even now, even 40 years later, people often refer to Monty Python, and yeah, it is still good, by the way, and some of that sense of humour, I think, is in the Pirates. A sort of a grand absurdity. And I think there are jokes everywhere, and I think I love the central characters. So I feel very, very warmly about that. At the studio today, Thursday, back in Bristol, we are filming a new film. Shooting, actually, there's no film. Shooting this new film, which is called Early Man. Nick Park is directing. Early Man referring to cavemen. So it's a comedy caveman adventure set in the Stone Age. Nick is directing. It's shooting fast and furious now. There's maybe 30 animators. You know, lots more than 30 different locations, different sets around the studio. Models are being built. It's very crazily busy now, and it will be for the next 5 or 6 months. It'll just be crazy because frankly they've fallen slightly behind schedule. So that means that they have to just now run for the next 6 months to finish this film. But it's a great film. It's very charming and funny. Nick is, you know, a genius, a comic genius is what he is. So it's full of charm, irresistible characters, new characters, lovely design, and some big, you know, spectacular set pieces. Everything we love.